There comes a moment in every relationship where silence feels louder than words, where the person you care about starts to pull away, and you feel like you're losing them. But let me tell you something right now. It's not about chasing, it's not about begging, it's not about proving your worth. The truth is this: when you walk away with strength, with clarity, with power, your absence becomes their obsession. And before you walk away, there's something you must say, something that will echo in their mind long after you're gone, something that forces the avoidant to rethink everything they thought they wanted. Today, I'm going to give you that mindset, that message, and that energy. Because this isn't just about relationships, it's about stepping into your self-worth, claiming your boundaries, and leaving such an impact that you can't be ignored. When you look in the mirror, the very first thing you must remind yourself of is this: you are not here to beg for love, you are not here to prove your worth to anyone, and you are not here to shrink yourself so someone else feels comfortable. You were born with value. It was not given to you by a partner, and it cannot be taken away by their distance, their silence, or their fear of closeness. Yet what happens when we deal with an avoidant? We start doubting ourselves. We start thinking, maybe I'm too much. Maybe I should hold back. Maybe I'm not enough. That's the trap. That's the exact energy that keeps you stuck in their cycle, because the moment you forget your value, you hand them all the power. So what does it mean to own your value? It means you stop apologizing for needing love, connection, and respect. It means you stop acting as if wanting intimacy is weakness. It means you start declaring, not with arrogance but with certainty, that you bring something powerful to the table. You bring presence, loyalty, depth, and care. And those qualities are not cheap, they are rare. When you truly understand this, your energy shifts. You no longer speak from desperation. You speak from confidence. You no longer wait for crumbs. You demand the full meal. An avoidant is drawn to people who know who they are, not people who bend, twist, and beg for attention. No, they are magnetized by strength. And strength is not about shouting louder or forcing your will. It's about knowing deep in your bones that if someone cannot meet you where you stand, you will not lower yourself to meet them halfway in a place that leaves you empty. Owning your value sounds like this: I know who I am. I know what I give. And if you cannot rise to meet me, then I will rise alone. Those words are not just sentences. They are a vibration. They hit the avoidant's mind in a way that lingers. Because while they may run from closeness, they cannot run from the truth. The truth that someone with self-worth is not easily replaced. You see, obsession doesn't come from what you chase. It comes from what you withhold. When you step into your worth, you send a message without even saying it out loud. I am the prize. I am the rare one. And if you cannot see that, someone else will. That energy flips the dynamic. It forces the avoidant to question, to reflect, and to obsess over what they are about to lose. One of the most powerful shifts you will ever make is when you stop chasing someone who keeps pulling away. Think about it. Every time you chase, you're reinforcing their belief that they can withdraw and still keep you right there waiting. The more you run after them, the faster they run from you. It's like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. The harder you grip, the more it slips away. But the moment you release the chase, something extraordinary happens. The energy flips. Suddenly, they feel the emptiness you used to fill, and they begin to wonder where you've gone. Avoidants are wired to crave space, to create distance, to protect themselves from intimacy. When you're chasing, you're confirming their deepest fear, that closeness equals suffocation, and that fear drives them further into retreat. But when you stop running behind them, when you step back and reclaim your space, you're no longer reinforcing their fear. Instead, you give them what they think they want: distance. And in that distance, they begin to feel something they didn't expect: loss. Releasing the chase is not weakness, it is strength. It is you saying, I will not exhaust myself trying to convince someone to see my worth. It is you declaring, I don't need to pursue love, it should flow toward me naturally. That's where your power is. When you stop proving and start embodying, you become magnetic. Picture this: they're used to you checking in, sending the text, making the call, asking, are you okay? Do you still care? But this time you don't. You stop explaining, you stop running, you let silence become your ally. And that silence is deafening. It makes them think, it makes them restless, it makes them question, wait, where did that energy go? Why aren't they chasing me anymore? You see, an avoidant doesn't obsess over someone who is always there, always available, always ready to patch up the cracks. They obsess over the one who walks with self-respect, the one who says, if you step back, I won't chase. If you withdraw, I won't beg. I'll simply continue my path, with or without you. That is where the power lies. That is where the obsession is born. When you release the chase, you're not abandoning love, you're shifting the dynamic. You're teaching them that your presence is not guaranteed, that your love is not a free, endless resource. And that realization begins to haunt them. It makes them look back over their shoulder, searching for what they thought they'd always have. There is a power far greater than shouting, far greater than pleading, far greater than trying to force someone to listen. And that is calm strength. When you speak from a place of calm, you become unshakable. Anger can be dismissed, begging can be ignored. But calm confidence, that lingers. It cuts through defenses. It unsettles the avoidant in ways they cannot explain, because it shows them you're no longer controlled by fear, no longer controlled by the desperate need to be chosen. Think about it. When you're emotional, when you raise your voice, when you're trying to convince them, they know exactly how to handle it. They retreat. They shut down. They hide behind walls. But when you speak with measured words, steady tone, unwavering energy, you throw them off balance. They expect chaos. Instead, you deliver composure. And that composure makes them pay attention. Calm strength sounds like this. I hear you. I see where you're at. But I know what I need, and I won't compromise myself. There's no shaking in your voice, no panic in your words, no fire of desperation. Just stillness, just certainty. That stillness is magnetic because it shows them you have control over yourself, something most people in their lives probably do not. Avoidants run from intensity, but they are drawn to stability. Not the kind of stability that bends for them endlessly, but the kind that holds its ground like a mountain. When you become that mountain, when your words are clear and your energy steady, you create an unspoken message. You cannot push me into reaction. You cannot control me with distance. I decide how I show up. That is powerful. Imagine looking someone in the eyes who is expecting you to break down, to fight, to cry, and instead you simply say, I understand, and I wish you the best, but I will not stay where I'm not valued. Then you fall silent. No chasing, no drama, just clarity. That moment doesn't fade from their memory. It burns into them because they realize they didn't just lose your presence. They lost your calm strength. The very thing that made you different from everyone else. Speaking with calm strength is not about suppressing your emotions, it's about mastering them. It's about letting your words carry weight without being wrapped in chaos. That mastery makes you unforgettable. That mastery makes them replay your voice long after you've walked away. There is something deeply human about not realizing the value of something until it's gone. The avoidant often takes your presence for granted because you've always been there, waiting, forgiving, reaching out, holding on. They start to believe that no matter how much space they take, you'll always return. And that belief keeps them comfortable. It keeps them from facing their fear. But when you plant the seed of loss, when you give them just a glimpse of what life will feel like without you, everything changes. Planting the seed of loss is not about threatening or manipulating. It's about speaking a truth so undeniable that it echoes in their mind long after you've walked away. You say something simple but powerful. One day you'll remember this love and realize what you let go. Those words don't need to be shouted. They don't need to be repeated 100 times. You say them once with conviction, and then you step back, and that sentence begins to live in their thoughts like a whisper they can't silence. Because here's the reality, avoidants convince themselves they don't need closeness, that distance keeps them safe. But the moment they face the idea of losing someone who truly cared, the story begins to crack. Suddenly, the walls they built don't feel as protective. Suddenly, the silence feels heavier. That's the power of loss. It forces reflection. Think of the times in your own life when you didn't appreciate something until it was gone. A place you moved away from, a friend you lost touch with, a moment you wished you could relive. That ache, that longing, It comes from realizing the gift you had in your hands and the regret that you didn't hold on to it tighter. That is exactly what begins to stir inside the avoidant when you plant that seed. And here's the key: you don't wait for their reaction. You don't say it to make them plead with you on the spot. You release it like a message carved into stone, and then you walk away. Days later, weeks later, months later, that sentence resurfaces in their mind. In quiet moments, in restless nights, in the empty space where your presence used to be, those words replay. And every time they do, the feeling of loss grows stronger. It's not about making them hurt. It's about making them see. It's about showing them that love is not infinite if it's not valued. And when they finally realize what they've lost, it's too late to undo the memory of your strength, your clarity, and your willingness to walk away. There is a language more powerful than words, and it's the language of silence. Most people underestimate it because we are conditioned to fill every gap with explanations, apologies, or pleas to be understood. But silence is not emptiness. It is strength. It is clarity. It is the energy that forces another person to face themselves without distraction. And when it comes to the avoidant, silence is your greatest ally. Think about how many times you've tried to explain yourself, pouring out your heart in long messages, desperate for them to see your side. You give them paragraph after paragraph, yet their response is short, distant, maybe even cold. And every time you explain, you hand them control. You confirm that you are the one doing all the emotional work. But when you stop talking, when you allow silence to settle between you, you shift the power dynamic completely. Silence is uncomfortable because it removes the noise that people hide behind. Avoidants thrive on distraction, on creating distance, on avoiding tough conversations, on burying their emotions under a busy mind. But when you go quiet, when you say your piece and then fall still, they are left with nothing but their own thoughts. They're forced to sit in the very thing they've been running from, the truth of their own behavior and the reality of losing you. And let me tell you, silence speaks louder than anger ever could. Anger can be dismissed as overreaction. Begging can be labeled as neediness. But silence leaves no excuses. It's a mirror. It reflects their choices back at them. It whispers, "This is what it feels like without me." And that whisper can become unbearable. Imagine saying your final words with calm strength and then refusing to argue further. You don't explain, you don't defend, you don't chase closure. You let silence carry the weight. At first, they may think they're relieved by it. Finally, no pressure, no demands. But as the days stretch, that silence grows heavier. The absence of your voice, your energy, your care, it begins to echo in their mind. That is why silence is so powerful. It is not passive. It is not weakness. It is deliberate. It is a choice to stop pouring your energy where it isn't honored. And when you master it, you create an obsession in the avoidance mind because silence forces them to confront what they're losing in a way words never could. Detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means shutting off your heart, pretending you don't care, or building walls so high that nothing can get through. But true detachment isn't about bitterness or coldness. It's about strength. It's about deciding that your peace matters more than proving your point. It's about refusing to carry resentment like a weight on your shoulders, because bitterness only ties you to the very person you're trying to free yourself from. When you detach without bitterness, you send a message that's louder than anger ever could. You're saying, "I cared, I gave, but I will not poison myself with resentment. I choose to let go with grace." That kind of energy is unforgettable because most people, when they walk away, do so in a storm, yelling, blaming, leaving behind broken words that can be easily dismissed. But when you leave calmly, without hostility, you become the storm they never saw coming. Think about it. When you leave with anger, the avoidant can point their finger and say, "See, that's why I pulled away. They were too much." But when you detach with peace, when you walk away without malice, there is nothing for them to use as justification. Instead, they're left with silence and grace, and that haunts them far more. Detachment without bitterness means you don't beg for them to change. You don't demand apologies they can't give. You don't cling to the hope of closure. Instead, you stand tall, knowing that your dignity is worth more than dragging someone along who doesn't know how to love at the depth you offer. And when you stand in that space, you radiate a power that's magnetic, Avoidants are used to people clinging, pushing, demanding. What they're not used to is someone letting go with love still in their heart, saying, I release you, not because I don't care, but because I care about myself too. That's the kind of goodbye that echoes. That's the kind of energy they can't shake. Bitterness burns bridges, but detachment builds respect. And respect is what lingers when attraction fades. When you detach without venom, you plant a memory in their mind of your strength, your calm, and your refusal to be reduced by their fears. And that memory doesn't fade, it grows. It becomes the reason they look back, wondering how they lost someone who refused to turn love into war. At the core of every avoidant is one driving fear, the fear of losing themselves if they get too close, and the fear of losing you if they don't. They live in this constant push and pull, needing intimacy but panicking when it arrives. And here's the truth. They expect you to be the one who is afraid. They expect you to cling, to panic at their silence, to do anything just to keep them close. That expectation is what keeps them in control. But the moment you mirror their fear back to them, the entire dynamic shifts. What does it mean to mirror their fear? It means showing them that you are not afraid to lose them. It means matching their energy not with desperation, but with calm certainty. When they withdraw, you don't run after them. You step back too. When they create space, you allow it. When they threaten to leave, you show that you can walk away as well. And that unsettles them deeply because it exposes the very fear they've been hiding from, the realization that you don't need them to survive. Avoidants are used to being chased. They've built their walls on the assumption that others will always try to climb over them. But when you stop climbing, when you stand still and let them face the possibility that you may actually move on, their fear is no longer theoretical. It becomes real. They begin to question themselves. What if this time they don't come back? What if I push too far? That is when obsession begins, because suddenly they're the ones replaying scenarios in their mind. Mirroring their fear is not about games. It's about alignment. It's about showing them through your actions and your energy that you value yourself enough not to beg. You're saying without words, I will not chase what runs. I will not cling to what slips away. If you fear closeness, I fear settling for less than I deserve. And that message is powerful because it makes them see you differently. Not as someone who depends on them, but as someone they could actually lose. And when that fear of loss lands in their heart, it doesn't leave easily. It lingers in their quiet moments. It keeps them awake at night. It forces them to confront the possibility that their walls may have cost them the very person who mattered most. That's the paradox of the avoidant. They run from fear, yet when you mirror it back, it's the one thing that makes them stop in their tracks. There is no greater power move in love, in life, in any relationship than walking away fully. Not halfway, not with one foot in and one foot out, not with conditions, not with threats, not with, I'll leave if you don't change. No, true power comes when you decide deep within yourself that you're done begging for love that should be freely given, and you walk away without looking back. See, the reason so many people never shift the dynamic with an avoidant is because they only pretend to walk away. They say they're done, but then they leave a door cracked open. They block them for a day, then unblock them. They delete the number, then memorize it just in case. They post about moving on, but secretly hope the avoidant is watching. That's not walking away, that's performing. And the avoidant sees right through it. It doesn't spark fear. It doesn't spark obsession. It only reassures them that no matter how far they run, you'll still be there in the shadows waiting. But when you walk away fully, when your actions match your words, that's when everything shifts. That's when the avoidant feels the ground shake beneath them. Because for the first time, they realize they've lost control of the story. They don't get to decide when you come back. They don't get to predict your next move. They're left staring at the empty space where you used to be, and that emptiness grows louder with every passing day. Walking away fully means reclaiming your dignity. It means saying, I will not be an option. I will not wait for breadcrumbs. I will not sit in the dark hoping someone eventually turns on the light. It's not about punishing them. It's about protecting you. Because your life doesn't end when they pull away. Your worth doesn't vanish when they stop calling. Your future doesn't collapse when they choose distance. In fact, Your life begins the moment you stop clinging to someone who cannot see your value. And here's the part they never expect. Your absence is far more powerful than your presence when it's tied to their comfort. They may not admit it out loud, but when you are no longer available, when your love is no longer guaranteed, when your energy is no longer feeding their ego, that's when obsession begins. Because people don't obsess over what they can always have, they obsess over what they thought they'd never lose. Walking away fully is the final test. It's the moment where your strength is louder than your words, where your silence is heavier than your pleas, where your absence becomes the very thing they can't stop thinking about. And when you mean it, truly mean it, they will feel it in ways they never expected. When it's all said and done, this journey isn't really about the avoidant at all. It's about you. It's about reclaiming the power you may have forgotten you had. It's about standing up and remembering that your worth was never tied to whether someone could handle your love. Too many people spend their lives trying to be enough for someone who is determined to run, and in the process, they forget that they were already enough. Walking away isn't about punishing them, it's about healing you. It's about stepping into a space where your value is not questioned, where your love is not treated like a burden, but honored like the rare treasure it is. There is no greater message you can send than the one that comes from your actions. Words may plant seeds, but your decision to walk away fully waters those seeds with truth. The avoidant may not understand it in the moment. They may even convince themselves they don't care. But as the silence grows and the distance deepens, they will feel it. They will feel the absence of your voice, the absence of your energy, the absence of your love. And whether they admit it or not, it will haunt them. Because true loss is never felt when someone is still half present. It is only felt when they are truly gone. And yet, the true reward is not their regret. It is your freedom. The moment you stop chasing what runs, the moment you stop begging for what should be freely given, you unlock a new chapter in your life. A chapter where you no longer settle for fragments of love, but stand open for the fullness you deserve. That's the beauty of reclaiming your power. You don't just shift the dynamic with them. You shift the dynamic with yourself. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to carry yourself differently, and the world around you responds to that energy. So if you find yourself standing at that crossroads, torn between holding on and letting go, remember this: you do not lose anything by walking away from half love. You do not lose anything by refusing to settle for distance disguised as closeness. What you gain is priceless. You gain clarity. You gain dignity. You gain strength that can never be taken from you. And in that strength, you will find a love, whether from them or from someone new, that matches the depth you've always carried. And when the avoidant looks back, and they won't remember your tears, they won't remember your begging, they won't remember the times you chased. They will remember the moment you stood tall, spoke your truth, and walked away with power. That image, that energy, that silence will stay with them long after you've moved on. And in the end, that is what makes them obsess. Not because you played a game, but because you finally remembered who you were. And nothing is more unforgettable than a person who refuses to forget their own worth. Thank you for being here with me today. If this message spoke to you, if it gave you clarity, strength, or even just one moment of truth you needed to hear, then take that energy with you and carry it into your life. Remember, your worth isn't defined by who stays or who leaves. It's defined by how powerfully you choose to stand in your truth. I'm grateful for every single one of you who shows up here, who listens, who grows, and who dares to step into the version of themselves that refuses to settle for less. Your journey matters, your healing matters, and you are never walking it alone. If you found value here, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss the messages that can shift your mindset and your life. Every time you engage, you help spread this message further, and together we're building a community of strength, clarity, and unstoppable self-worth. Keep standing tall, keep speaking your truth, and keep remembering who you are. You are the prize, you are the rare one, and your love is not something to be taken lightly. Until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for growing, and thank you for walking this journey with me. Stay strong, stay true, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye for now.